Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. Nigeria's economy has shown early signs of recovery following the removal of fuel subsidies, with non-oil exports driving growth, according to new policy data. Nigeria introduced crude oil as a social product in 1973, and then domestic prices were below international levels. At that time, crude oil was sold locally at $1.93 per barrel, while the global price stood at $3. By 1980, the gap widened, and when oil prices dropped to $15.1 in 1986, the subsidy element reached 68.8%. By early 2025, however, non-oil exports began to stabilize the economy. Export earnings rose 65% year-on-year in the first quarter of 2025 to 1.7 trillion naira. Agriculture's share of total exports increased to 8.3%. Imports of agricultural goods fell, leaving a surplus of 668.3 billion. Now, the external position improved. The country recorded a current account surplus of $3.73 billion in the first quarter of 2025. Well, this reversed deficits of more than 3 billion naira in each of the two previous years. The reforms boosted investor confidence. Equity transactions on the Nigerian exchange reached 6 trillion between January and July 2025, compared with just 3 trillion in the whole of 2024. Now, consumer goods firms also returned to profit. In the first quarter of 2025, 7 major companies reported the combined pre-tax profit of 289.8 billion naira. Well, tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will focus on consolidating non-oil exports. But before we get into the conversation, let's get to see this report.
The economy has long thrived on agriculture, commerce, trade, and industry, with the Dawano International Grains Market, the largest in West Africa, serving as the major hub for bulk agricultural products. Latest report from the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that Kano State's GDP rose from 10.7 trillion in 2019 to 16.8 trillion in 2023, with agriculture increasing from 3.2 trillion to 5.4 trillion naira, reaffirming its central role in sustaining the economy. The industrial sector saw slower but noticeable progress, rising from 1.7 trillion to 2.4 trillion naira, despite some fluctuations along the way. The services sector recorded the strongest expansion, jumping from 5.8 trillion in 2019 to 9 trillion naira in 2023, making it the single largest contributor to the state's GDP. To shift the balance toward industrialization, the state government is intensifying efforts to strengthen the non-oil export base, including processed grains, groundnut products, sesame, and textiles. However, the success of this drive depends largely on creating a conducive environment for investment in agro-allied industries and value addition.
The presidency seeks to support non-oil exports through a special funding or Office of the Vice President, through the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, and any other support. What we expect is that the support will be rooted or coordinated very clearly through interagency collaboration and putting in front the agency of government that has been established to promote non-oil export.
We are appealing to the federal government to reduce the export clearing charges.
We can leverage on the population and make them skilled, ensure that our own large number of population are skilled enough to in both the agricultural sector as well as in the agricultural value chain.
At an investment summit in Kano, the State Commissioner for Commerce, Investment and Industry, Shehu Wadas Hagagi, reveals that his ministry has proposed the establishment of a dedicated gold market in the state.
I have just submitted a proposal to His Excellency that Kano, we are going to establish a gold market. Kuma reason shine zaka ga muna neighboring in some of the states. So it's an opportunity that if we collaborate, I think we can grow each other's economy very well.
With the Wano market at the center of this transformation, the state government has embarked on major upgrades, improving standardization, storage, quality control system, and infrastructure to ensure Kano maintains its leadership in grain pricing and export quality. As the state ventures into new frontiers, from gold trading to diversified exports, Kano's evolving economic landscape is gradually shifting towards value-added production. In Kano, Aminu Umar.
All right. That sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's introduce our guests. Welcome to this program, a regular analyst on this program, Professor Ken Ife, development economist and global consultant. Good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. We're joined by Sherik Balogun, President, Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, sir.
All right. And we're also joined from our Port Harcourt studio by Ofon Udofia, CEO, Institute of Export Operations and Management. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Me.
Right. Okay, so the issues are clear. It's all about consolidating non-oil exports. And as you're aware, with the nature of the program, at some point in time we'll go interactive and you can join in the conversation. But when it's that time, we'll remind you of the process and the procedure. But let's get down to the business of the day. And we'll start with you, Professor Ken Ife. From our introduction, it would seem that the economy is picking up and the country is beginning to make inroads in terms of non-oil exports. Give us a general look of the performance so far.
Well, the economy is recovering. I mean, remember, I keep saying that in 2023, in May, end of May, the situation was like the country was in an intensive unit, as I always say, on a cliff. But then, 2 years down the line, it's moved off that unit and is in a recovery position. And many of the indices have changed. For example, you've seen the reversal on balance of payment. This is remarkable. There was even last year when it was $6.8 billion. It's very important because it is one of the factors that move the GDP up. Then we've seen stability in the foreign exchange. We've seen monetary policy reining in high inflation and then also sucking away all the oxygen from excess liquidity in the system, which obviously was occasioned by the 33 trillion that was printed, and many other things. So we have seen some steady hands on the macroeconomic policy framework. We've seen the fiscal side, very good handshake with the monetary side, and we've seen that by January, the new fiscal law will kick in, which would even make things better. Then in terms of performance, two things on the performance. Oil has actually started picking up, because, you've seen growth in the oil. It used to be absolute negative over the years. But the one that excites everybody is the non-oil export. And they have very good reasons for non-oil export. First of all, devaluation of our currency is a massive impetus for export. It means that anything you pick up from Nigeria can be bought abroad. And let me give you an idea. I work in ECOWAS Commissioner's consultant, as you know, over the last 15 years. Now, if we go to any of we are surrounded by Francophone countries. 1 naira usually will buy 3 francs CFA. But now, because of the devaluation, 1 naira cannot buy 1. It can only buy 0.7. So what it means is that the things that I use 100 naira to buy in our neighboring country, I can buy them with 300 naira now. Conversely, something that they get for 100 naira here will be like 30 naira to them. So everything from Nigeria is cheap. I can give you one example, Apple. You know, Apple could be 800 naira, maximum 1,000. But I go across the border as we did 2 months ago, less than 2 months ago, and I was buying that Apple 3,000 naira. So you could see if there's anything that comes from here, they make money from it. So that helps our export. But of course, there are many other things. The export, when it's non-oil, it could include solid mineral, and we are getting a lot of traction on solid mineral. It could include a lot of agriculture, and we are beginning to face the reality that you need to invest in quality infrastructure, because the issue here is, have you actually got products that can be traded on the international market? So quality has become so critical. It wasn't as bad as it was in the region during around independence 60s and early 70s. It has changed. There are so much is rules based, and then there are sanitary and phytosanitary requirements, there are technical specifications, there are non-tariff barriers, a lot of them to do with institutions and all of that. But that game, we are becoming more sensitive to the quality of product that we are bringing out to the market. So all of those they're increasing our lots, and I just hope that we'll do more. And the way we can do more is to reverse this import dependence. When you're looking at growth of Nigerian economy, there are two areas. The current growth of the aggregate is coming from services, because services post the growth. Because services is also considered in non-oil export, the services. But then when you disaggregate services, you are now left with industry and agriculture. And you know that the first quarter agriculture was 0.07. So the whole story is we have to focus on industrialization as a way of delivering export-led strategy.
All right.
And then the rest of it, we will tie up the rest of it in our discussion.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Let's come to you, the president of the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce. A cursory glance at Nigeria's performance in the non-oil exports.
Right. Well, like the Prof said, we've seen tremendous improvements in non-oil export, and the reason is not far-fetched. Our goods have become more competitive because of our currency, and there's been deliberate effort also by government to promote exports through various agencies and collaborations with stakeholders. And we see, especially for agricultural products, we've seen significant changes. Of course, it's driven also by demand from the international community. And for example, sesame seed, Nigeria is one of the largest exporter of sesame seed to Japan. We supply over 50% of the import of sesame seed from Japan. China is also another major market for our product. So there's demand for products like sesame seed, and that has helped to push up the figure of export of non-oil export from Nigeria. You can also look at cocoa. There's been a significant change in the price of cocoa. Cocoa has pushed the foreign exchange earning. Cocoa was about $5,000 at one time. Cocoa moved up to rose up to about $15,000. It's come down a bit now to about $9,000. So if you see, that's like almost tripling the figures. Same volume, but triple the figure. However, the cocoa sector itself, we need to do more in terms of processing, because if you look at the combined volume of cocoa as a business, while we are one of the major exporters, we're getting less than 5% of the total value, because when you add value, you get more. If you look at a bar of chocolate, you can see what the price is as against a whole ton of cocoa that we're exporting. From a ton of cocoa, which is about $9,000, the derivative from it will be about 10 times that. So we need to do a lot more on that. The direction is being set. Government is coming out with a policy of process process. While we support that, but we need to do it in ways that are measured to be able to, ensure that there's a smooth transition from basic export to, process goods in a way that will not disrupt the market. And I bring this I brought this issue because I'm sure recently you heard that the government has banned the export of shea nuts. 6 months, they say, as a trial period, but that has caused a lot of disruptions because there's what you call work in progress. People have signed contracts, the season contract to deliver shea nuts. People have borrowed money from the banks, they have stocked their warehouse, and they're in between the process of preparing and moving this good. Now a ban comes suddenly. What happens to those? But I'm sure there's a policy to see how that will be absorbed. Yes, that will be worked out. Okay. So I think the traction is on non-oil export. Of course, solid minerals is another one. We're seeing the demand for critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, tantalum, and these are products that we have in Nigeria, fortunately for us, and we're seeing a lot of movement in the export of these products. Urea is another one in terms of non-agri. Dangote, of course, a significant export in urea. So urea has played a role in boosting the figures in export. Dangote is exporting urea to the US, to Brazil, even that. So that's a very, very important development that's added to, the non-oil export sector.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go over to our Port Harcourt studio and see if we can link up with Fonu Dofia and hear his opening comments on the day's topic. Yes, you're there.
So much, and I want to thank Prof. and Ken. This is a good development because if any country must move forward, you must do a lot on export. Yes, in Nigeria, as the case may be, we are driving away from the traditional export, which is our crude oil, and we are actually going into the non-oil. Considering the environment that I am, the south side, mainly Niger Delta region, export is also thriving here because things like waste products are being exported from here, like the palm kernel shell. So if you look at the palm fruits as it were, from the palm oil, the palm kernel shell is a major thing that we are actually doing so much here, palm kernel cake, and also in Port Harcourt, like in Dorama, before the end of the second quarter, Dorama has already done export over $175 million US of urea to Brazil. So it's a good development, and I want to congratulate the government, and I also pray that there will be that political will. In Nigeria, sometimes we celebrate opportunities and do nothing with it. Now that we are moving on this direction, we should not be distracted. Not that maybe for any reason that the oil price will go up, we now look down. So it is a good development. I also want to encourage the government to give support to the exporters, because besides being a chief executive of the institute, I also do export myself. So there are a lot of lacuna that the government needs to put in place to enable the exporters of non-oil export products to continue. And more than that, let's look at our institutions. The tech is also helping every people that are into tech that are exporting services. Then the schools, as we do it, we are still doing more import with our phone in different platforms that export. So our youngsters from the universities, as they're coming up, should also be taught on how to do export, because the future is very bright. If you look at the non-oil export sector, you look at the solid minerals, they've mentioned some. There's a particular one that I discovered from Cross River. They have what they call mica. It's just everywhere, entering from Dupani, Ugep, up to Bamba axis. So it is something that each state government should be encouraged to look at what are the items, what are the minerals, what are the agricultural products. They have a comparative advantage. So they look into what, like before now, we used to be number one in palm oil, but it has dropped. Thank God that the government has just started distributing seedlings, so which is a good thing that we are encouraging. Seedlings that can do better within 3 months or like within 3 years or above. Then we should also put some things in place, like quality control. Most of our palm oil that are going out, edible palm oils, has excess free fatty acid. So which means this should be controlled. There should be a synergy between the private sector and the government.
like Nigerian Export Promotion Council is doing so much in certification, like NAFDAC, FDA, Halal, HACCP, fine. But more than that, there should be synergy between the trade support institutions and the government agencies on their own, because government will not be able to do everything. So there should be trade support institutions cited in nearly every state of the federation, and then go into the interland. Like if you go to China in their export bid, every local government have what they are producing. So we should look at it from that perspective in Nigeria. And God has so blessed us that every local government has something to offer. So we should look inward, improve it, allow it to stay there, not going down. Rather, we should be going up. Because
you are an exporter yourself, and you've just mentioned that there are one or two things which need to be tidied up. We'll return to you on that count for us to know those challenges, those things you say need to be fixed to further boost Nigeria's exports. But we'll return to you in just a moment. Let me come back to the studio here with Professor Kenife. Yes, significant progress has been made, even if some would see it as not as fast as would want it. But the issue is that oil still dominates your exports.
Yeah. Well, oil oil is actually insignificant in our domestic economy, because it's only about 5%, 5 to 5.5%.
Okay.
And in terms of government revenue, it's actually come down below 50%. It used to drive government revenue, and they may go down to 40%. I think they're looking at bringing it well below 40%. Where oil is critical is on export forex income.
Right.
Where crude accounts for 79%. Gas accounts for 11%. So between the two of them is 90% of our forex revenue. The remaining 10% is diaspora remittance, foreign portfolio investment. We'll scratch our head here. Those other little things, invincibles and all that. So that's why the drive, and this is important because the reason why it's important is because we have an import-dependent economy. That is the crux of the matter. We inherited that. That's our colonial legacy. And we have an international division of labor that says you must produce raw material, and we in Europe want those raw material to process it for you to consume in Nigeria. That's what we are fighting for. So economic independence is eluded us because we have an import-dependent economy. So to deal with that,
yes. So process your materials.
Absolutely. But you see, the question is, are you having growth? First of all, no. The first question is, where is your investment? If you have, the tension is between government and private sector. The balance between government and private sector influence. That's the balance. That is the balance for free market economy. Where do you get the right balance? So you can have growth as we are having growth, but the growth you are having is not creating employment. It is not reducing poverty. It is not solving the problems. So you are having service industries are doing well, even without government support. Cultural industries all over the world. Our banks are doing well all over the world. Our ICT, digital economy, they're doing well. But they can't feed you that much. They can't create the kind of employment the productive sector can provide. If 60% are in agriculture and the level of agriculture is so mundane and you are moving your export, your raw material, you will never develop. So that is why at the center should be an industrialization program that allows you to convert those raw materials to products that you can export and earn more revenue. Now, I heard what you said. You see, Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire produce 74% of world cocoa. But if you look at the entire cocoa value chain, we're only 7% of the value chain. Shea butter will produce 40%. We're only about 3% of the value chain. So when you add 10% value, the revenue doubles. If you add 30% value, the revenue triples. So that's why government says we're not going to export any raw material unless you have minimum of 30% value addition. And what it will translate to is that that revenue we are calling non-oil export now will triple. And then you cease worrying about NNPC and oil money. Because it means that now our non-oil revenue, export revenue, could be about 40%, and their own goes down to about 30, for about 60%. So that is how the rebalancing will come, by making sure we implement that law.
Across board, Nigeria's exports, yes, are on the rise. But at what point can you begin to sit back now and say, look, even as oil dominates the export revenue, at what point do you begin to, what are you looking at in the immediate and medium term? At what point do you begin to see oil gradually becoming, playing second fiddle, being the second place? And we can now say, yes, we don't need to look towards that sector.
Yeah, well, very good question. But then, to analyze it and look at what will be the panacea or the answer to that question is to look at when are we going to get serious about our industrialization policy, about growing what we have to process. Now, taking it back to agriculture again. For example, Netherlands exports over $700 billion worth of agri-products. Netherlands is smaller than a lot of states in Nigeria. Niger is even probably double the size of Netherlands. So, from production, primary production of the product itself that you want to process, because you see sometimes there's this mantra of double our export, triple our export. But there's a limit. When you have not produced, what can you increase? So it must start from the production itself. Have a policy and plan that will begin to look at what are those products that we want to be specific and what are the targets. Set targets. We want to move sesame seed right now from, we're doing 600,000 tons of sesame seed. It's contributing about $800 million. In 1 or 2 cropping seasons, we can double that production. And then we can talk about processing for oil and other derivatives. So if there is no nexus between production and the process itself, we'll only be talking about figures. Okay. I will not get there. Tomato, for example, to bring this succinctly, tomato we're doing 3 tons per hectare. And you can do 800 tons of tomato per hectare. So what stops us from putting in the investment to be able to do that from 3 to 800 tons per hectare? And what is the cost of tomato today? If you look at the export, so if you take just to that one crop, let's say on tomato alone, that could contribute significantly to our GDP for local consumption and also for exports.
All right, we're being joined in this conversation by a commercial farmer and president of the Nigerian Farmers Business Group, architect Kabiru Ibrahim, joins us via Zoom. Thanks for being here tonight. Right, you probably would need to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Right.
You got many experts there.
Okay.
I would have to agree with them mostly, but well, ask me. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, sure. Well, we're looking in the direction of the non-oil exports, and particularly agricultural products come in here. We've seen that, yes, the volume has increased, it's bringing in more revenue, but then it hardly scratches the surface because what you put in across has no value addition. And by the time you add a little to it, you'd be doing 3 times, 4 times, even 10 times more than you're doing right now. So you are a commercial farmer, and you chair the Nigerian Farmers Business Group. So give us your take on this.
Well, generally, what should happen in Nigeria is to get the small-scale producers to scale their productivity. and then get the processors to do optimally well so that you are able to export a little more or do agribusiness even within the country and within Africa. Now, the idea of a farmer selling what he or she produces in his primary form will never take us out of poverty, but value addition will definitely take us where we want to be as a nation. Many other countries that don't have oil and have good agricultural products are very rich now. They're in the league of the first world. I heard somebody mention the Netherlands. The Netherlands has a population of 17 million people. Their economy is really agro-based. And most of what they do is they add value and then export to the world. The income from that is in excess of $300 billion. They are next only to the United States of America in terms of income from agriculture. I mean, from agribusiness or agriculture as a whole. Now, Nigeria has got a lot of land, a lot of cultivable and irrigable land, and so many farmers. Now, all you need to do is to put all the cross-cutting issues that help to scale productivity, and then, well, productivity does not just mean production, processing also, distribution, and marketing. And marketing is what really gives impetus to agribusiness. Now, if people produce and there is 50% post-harvest loss, for instance, they can never be agribusiness. I mean, people have hardly enough to even survive. So we must create all the enabling environment to make things work, to make the food system work, to make the country to be able to earn a lot more than it earns right now from oil. Oil is already a curse to Nigeria, for instance. There are many skirmishes around the oil. Now we can't even process, we can't even refine our petroleum. We depend on just selling the crude and importing back the refined product, which is already taking its toll on the economy. Our foreign exchange problems are arising from our inability to earn any foreign exchange from anywhere. What we earn from the non-oil sector can be optimized if we encourage processing inward. But processing can never scale if you don't have a good energy sector.
Okay.
If you don't have mechanization, if you don't, if you are not transparent, if you don't have standards and gradings. So these are the things. Now, what we are doing in agribusiness is that we look at a policy, we follow it through. I mean, you keep a policy working to get to a crescendo where you will be able to really get the best out of it. But if you start one policy today and jettison it for another one and another one, you will never really do anything. So we will never get out of where we are now unless we look at all the cross-cutting issues that will make agribusiness or exportation of value-added products to the world. And Africa today is one market, and Nigeria is in a very vantage position to be able to earn a lot of foreign exchange even within Africa. Before going outside Africa, you should be able to dominate the agribusiness market here in Africa, to be able to be the leader, not in name, but in reality.
Okay. All right. Thanks so far. But, well, this seems to tie in with what the CEO of the Institute of Export Operations and Management had said earlier. That's talking about Ofon Udofia, who himself is an exporter. I did say we would come back to you. Now we're going to our Port Harcourt studio. I did say we'll come back to you to find out those things. You said we're standing in the way of optimized exports. So let's hear from you. First, perhaps an experience as an exporter yourself.
Yes, Syria, thank you so much. First, from government policy, like the farmer was saying, we are promoting Ghana today that they are doing a lot of work in exporting yam. For an average yam you see outside Nigeria, I think is from Ghana, even when it's transported from Nigeria to Ghana, because Ghana government has what they call a yam development plan for 30 years. They have started and they are following it critically, but in our country we have a lot of issues with policy somersaults. Like Prof was saying, government just wake up one morning, we are banning shea nut. Yes, value addition is very important, but before you start the value addition, have you given the people time? Have you prepared their mind that between this period and this period, if you don't add value, you will not be able to sell? So this is also affecting the importers from the buyers from other countries. They are not taking us serious because they just feel our government can just wake up and make some statement that will actually disrupt their transaction in Nigeria. I may attempt to look at that to call them non-tariff barrier. This is not tariff, but are policies of government. So if government is really serious and we want to do export, non-oil export and continue, we need to look at that. When we are talking about, number two is that when we are talking about exporters, there's a very big knowledge gap. For instance, currently now, the European Union is working on the EUDR, that's what is called European Deforestation Regulation. How many of our exporters are aware of this?
Oh, we're beginning to lose audio signals from Port Harcourt studio. So we'll return to Ofonu Dofia later, and we might have fixed that issue. So back here in the studio, you heard the commercial farmer. We've spoken to an exporter and the farmer himself, and they've outlined this. And the earlier question I put to the president of the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce is when we expect to begin to see the oil taking
a
backseat. And these are the issues that those two gentlemen have now outlined. Progress has been made, but is that progress commensurate with the policy we are looking at?
Not enough. Let me give you some examples. In 2011, 2012, I was the UK government trade advisor to Nigeria government. And my job was to prepare Nigeria for accession to WTO trade facilitation agreement. So I did that for over a year with 46 trade-related agencies, customs, all of them. And then we went around all the borders and all the airports and all this. WTO says lack of trade facilitation accounts for 15% of your total import-export volume. Now let's put the numbers. Nigerian import-export is about $120 billion a year. Now, 18 to 20 billion of that money is lost because of trade facilitation. But who pays that bill is the private sector.
Absolutely.
And then let's see what are the dimensions of this. Ghana, it costs Ghana only $7,000 to export 100 tons of cocoa. The same 100 tons of cocoa to be exported from Nigeria cost $40,000. So you're going to ask yourself, is the custom there to facilitate trade, or what exactly is going on? We'll come to another one. If you import into Nigeria, since 2011, that time, I have been harassing each minister after another for Nigeria to adopt national single window, because that was when the deadline. And what the national single window is a commitment to 1 day, 24-hour clearance, which means if you get all your documentation electronically They will be sent to the country that is going to export into you. They will clear it. Then you can pay your duty. Then the goods will now enter the ship. It won't even enter the ship until it's all cleared. So that when it arrives here, you have no business with anybody. But go and see what happens to people who are importing. Their truck, their container could be there for 2 weeks. And you are paying a truck that gone there about 400,000, 300 to 400,000 a day. And by the time the thing comes out, it's not worth it because you have wasted more money, do more ride, all that cost. And because you are not facilitating trade, our people are voting with their feet. You go to Cotonou, 400,000 second-hand cars come into Nigeria through Cotonou. They prefer to pay their tax to them and then get them through porous border without us collecting the tax. That means we have problem with our countries assembling cars. Then you have another one. There were 2 projects I did for World Bank. One of them is authorized economic operator to see how that will work between Lagos and Abuja, that transit corridor. So we did that. We showed it was going to be very viable. Let us pilot between Nigeria and Benin. And when you do the national one, then you can do regional one. That could have reduced transportation asymmetry and misalignments in transportation and logistics. They haven't done it. It was only 2 weeks ago that the new CG of Customs announced that they are going to do it. This was work I did 12 years ago. And the same thing, single window, they are now announcing they are going to do it. This is over 12 years. All of these are penalties to private sector. These are all forces reducing our potential to export and raise revenue. There's a lot of it. This is just the beginning. This is the beginning. There's a lot of stories on this.
The place of transport infrastructure in all of this, and I'm coming to you because the business of exporting, you used the example of a particular product that would cost this much to export from Ghana, while it's almost triple to export that same volume from Nigeria. It brings us to the question of the infrastructure on ground. Yes. Take yams, for instance, which you use as an example, that probably the yams you find there actually came from Nigeria but were exported through Ghana. So what are those bottlenecks that you should be looking at to stop that from happening?
Okay, thank you. That issue, if you analyze it, transport infrastructure is one. Typically, it will cost you about anywhere from 1.3 to 1.7 million naira to move goods from up north to the ports in Lagos. Mm-hmm. And you pay $300 to $400 to export goods from Lagos to China. So look at that. So our transportation infrastructure, is it about the roads? Is it about the trucks itself? You know, we're having a small discourse before this program started about logistics. Logistics is key. It's a big percentage of moving and doing trade. So if that is not developed, already you are at a disadvantage by the figures there. What's happening to our rail system? Where that will provide a competitive way of moving goods in volume, on time, and give less stress on the road. So we should be looking at fixing that. Now, the national single window, which Prof talked about, for the import side, the same thing applies for the export side. You need to cut down on the documentation. You need to cut down on the waste of time. You need to cut down on the bureaucracy. So if in Ghana I can do all my process of export from one single place, within 24 hours, pass my document and move. Exporters who want to buy will look at where provides the most efficient in terms of delivery. Here, you sign a contract. For no fault of yours, you cannot meet with the delivery dates. And these are time-bound because those who are buying from you have also obligations, commitments to meet in selling, either putting the goods on the shelves or selling to others who will order process. So you find out that prices that we obtain here are discounted prices because of non-delivery in good time. And they've tested us. It's not that they just did this arbitrarily. Our products, a lot of them, like our ginger, is one of the best in the world. These inherent characteristics. But we're not commanding premium prices. So like other products for some of these reasons. So that single window, hopefully, it's said by 2026, maybe first quarter, it will go into play. Hopefully, that will be one of the things that will help in terms of moving. Because where you have prepared goods for export and it's taking you about a month just to move from a distance of 40 kilometers from your warehouse, to dock the container into the ports, that is a big problem. So until we solve issues like that, then you also have all sorts of agencies coming up with unnecessary charges of looking to start rent seeking. We're talking about standards, certification, conformity. Yes, these are things that we need to do. But agencies are supposed to facilitate, become trade facilitators, are becoming checkpoints. Everybody wants to issue certificate for you to export. And export is something that's very competitive. So when you heap up all of these charges, it affects the volume of the export that we'll do. Because once it becomes not profitable, the exporters will not go into exports. So that is a bottleneck that needs to, there needs to be a conversation around bringing all stakeholders and saying we want to facilitate trade. And you necessarily don't have to issue a certificate or necessarily have to charge before you can do this. So those are some of the problems and some of the challenges that we're facing. Our quality infrastructure as well. You talked about the transport, the quality infrastructure also. Do we have the laboratories that will be able to respond when you want to test these goods and ensure that it's okay before you export? You don't send in your samples and you spend weeks in getting some of the analysis and all of that. Those are some of the things. And there are government agencies that are in charge of these things. So we need to up our game if we want to see significant changes in our export.
All right. I believe that links with Port Harcourt studio, the audio is much better now. So let's return to Ofonu Dofia. And yes, at some point in time, we lost that connection. We couldn't hear you. Now we hope we can hear you loud and clear. And so if you just pick up from where you left off.
Yes, I was trying to enumerate some of the challenges that, one, that no university or polytechnic in Nigeria is offering export as a course. You do not do what you don't know. Yes, we are building up our game now. We are doing very fine now. But what happened next if the young generation are not keen into export? Export need to be made, to be incentivized, to have incentive to enable you to do it. For instance, like when Malaysia was moving their palm kernel cake to Europe, they were able to subsidize that for them. The government was paying part of the freight. Then beside that, I want to say the one that is actually affecting us here in the Niger Delta. The freight differential is a major key issue. Like my friend just said, yes, over here, if I'm to do palm kernel cake or palm kernel shell from Port Harcourt to South Africa, I'll pay about $1,300 US. Whereas the same transaction, the same product from Lagos to South Africa, some shipping line will collect as less as $500. So you see that it's a bigger problem. Why does the problem come? Yes, during the period of piracy in the Niger Delta, during the period of kidnapping, yes, there was an embargo, there was an insurance from the International Maritime Organization that any vessel coming to the Niger Delta would do an insurance. Now those things are no longer there, and this has not been removed by International Maritime Organization. So if only Lagos and the suburb like Kano and the rest could do this much export, that has also helped us to bring the non-oil export into this. So if that is removed, it's to really help us from here. It is a calling call that federal government, through NIMASA, should sit down with the International Maritime Organization and remove that red flag so that we will pay the same freight as people in Lagos are also paying. Of recent, I was to do palm kernel shell to Poland, and I met a shipping line. He gave me a bill of $1,300. How much is palm kernel shell? It's a waste material. I'm only selling them for $130. By the time you add that, you see that will not be competitive. Then My friend has also mentioned it. Most of the agencies in the port are not facilitating trade. I pray that the single window will come to bear so they can enjoy like what our counterparts in Ghana, in Mombasa port in Kenya, in Tema port are enjoying. We don't need to have that interface. The unrestricted payment at the port is much. Like within Port Harcourt here, for you to move into the gate of the port, I wouldn't want to mention agencies. Some agencies will collect as much as 40,000 naira per 40-footed container. By the time you are doing 10 containers, you cannot be competitive. And you know, in export, the moment you fix the price, you cannot change. Unlike on import, that when you bring in cargo and there are unrestricted payments, you can add it and give it to the masses to pay by virtue of adding to your price. But in export, you cannot increase your price after you have issued the final invoice out. So it's a major challenge. Government should look at it, and I pray that this single window will work, because I don't want a scenario that government will come up with it and there are other agencies that are trying to frustrate it. And then secondly, government should put most of the agencies together, mostly the one that had to do with certification. I won't go to NAFDAC differently, go to OSO differently, come back and go to quarantine to get phytosanitary certificate. If all of them are put in a place, Cyril, let me tell you something that happened. Our agencies need to sit up. I remember one of my trainees did something. He was exporting from Lagos, and then yet the fumigation certificate came from Nigeria, from Port Harcourt. When the cargo get to South Africa, bedbug was discovered. So you see that the agencies are not that sincere. Government should look at them and make sure that there should be a consequences. If my tractor or my trailer is being delayed by any agency and I'm not able to meet up with the shipment time, and maybe my cargo is kept and I'm paying for the period that the cargo is being there, I'm paying terminal charges, that agency that was able to make me do that should have a penalty so that it will serve as a deterrent to others. I make bold to tell you that exporters in this country are like orphans. We don't have who to cry to. There's a lot of issues. Government is only concerned with bringing the dollar, making sure that your NSP is done, making sure that the money comes into their coffers. When an exporter had issue, who does it run to? How is Shippers Council being strengthened? Shippers Council is supposed to be the port economic regulator. They take complaints. Are they really doing that? So they
They have a voice, and that's exactly what you're doing right now. But in addition to the discussion, we also have a couple of reports. Let's get to see this one from Lagos.
Nigeria's economy is said to have experienced positive growth, put at 4.23% in the third quarter of 2025. This is according to the National Bureau of Statistics. The non-oil sector is said to contribute significantly to this upward trend, accounting for 95.95% of the real GDP growth in the second quarter of 2025. The recently renovated 64 billion naira National Theatre, considered a national pride, befitting Africa's largest economy, is seen as a strategic move to address infrastructural deficit and drive revenue generation.
Let it stand as a beacon of creativity, innovation, and unity for decades to come.
Based on facts collected by all the players in the industry, the hotels, the Airbnb, the short-let apartments, the restaurants, the tour operators, the music stars themselves who performed, a lot of the data was collected, and the figure came to 100 billion naira that was made during that December in Lagos. And there was no doubt among stakeholders that that is just a very small indication of the real market when the tourism market of Lagos is fully developed.
Industry players recognize the enormous potentials of Nigerian creatives that attract international collaborations and global recognition.
We've had Nigerians who have been participating in this, our world of creativity, you know what I'm saying? And all of them have made landmark achievements through time. Fortunately, we have come to this era where, because of the kind of format we're using, we have exploded, so to speak, and we have not just exploded, we have received international attention, and this has come maybe over 20 years ago and so on and so forth. Or everybody wants a part of Nigeria in whatever representation there. Even our Ghana Must Go Back has formed part of entertainment in the past.
But we are grateful for the platforms that have come. So now we're beginning to see better planned films and, just films that have more international potentials. So the structure, the government still just needs to do some regulations for us.
The agricultural sector, known to be the mainstay of Nigeria's economy before independence, received diverse attention.
And what we're doing from the farm gate, we're teaching the exporters, the farmers, good agricultural practices, how to, the level of pesticides that they're supposed to use. We are working with them, teaching them on how to even document their books to ensure that we de-risk the whole value chain of sesame and cowpea, and this will be replicated for other products.
Manufacturing, telecommunications, tourism, travel, logistics, fintech, e-commerce, and among others are not left out of the value chain responsible for the significant turnaround.
I can say 90% of technology startups in Nigeria are also in Lagos, and it keeps growing. There are a lot of things happening silently in the tech industry, from the AI, and everything, emerging technology, the blockchain, Web3 space, that a lot of people are not even seeing. But it's also an economy that has attracted over billions of dollars of VC flow into Lagos. So Lagos is a place whereby I think the opportunity is vast.
The paradigm shift driven by the non-oil sector, experts say, continues to reposition the nation's economy to a sustainable growth trajectory and has the potential of attracting 2.7 million jobs by the end of 2025. In Lagos, Amaka O.
We'll take a short break here. When we return, there'll be more of those reports. We'll also, at that time, take your comments or questions. That's when the phone lines will open. But stay with us. We'll be right back with on consolidating non-oil exports. All right, thanks for staying with us. It's still about consolidating non-oil export. Now, in this segment, the phone lines will be open. It means you can join in the conversation. You can call in to ask a question or air your views, make a comment on the issues at stake. And we say this all the time. If you are calling in tonight and your call gets through, turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the holdback or the echo. Now, is this all a matter of knowing when you're on? To help you know that your call has been passed through, your name will appear on screen. Once you see that, just go ahead, ask your question or make your comment. Your name is on screen. Don't wait for any other thing. Just go straight ahead. And we encourage you to go straight to the point and not waste time on greetings. A simple hello will do. We'll start off with another of our reports. This one is from Abuja.
Nigerian's non-oil export has seen an increase in export performance, revenue base, foreign exchange earnings, and enhanced regional integration in recent times. It's a trajectory that the government is keen to sustain for economic growth and production capacity.
For half year 2025, that is between January to June, we saw a surge in export compared to last year. Nigeria exported 230 products. We have seen a gradual shift from export of agricultural commodities to finished and semi-manufactured products. Nigerians are investing, Nigerians and foreigners, investors generally, are coming into the space of adding value.
Sesame, it's like number 4 in terms of our non-oil exports. Last year to 2024, we did a total of about $400 million worth of exports of sesame, which when you now aggregate that and let's even say convert it into Naira, it's running into almost about 867 to 800 billion Naira, which it's, when you look at it, it's more like bigger than the budget of several states in this country.
The demand for African staple food generally across the globe is in high demand. Practically everywhere you go to, the likes of Tesco, the likes of Walmart are interested in African Isles. And how best can you serve them? You want to serve them because you're so sure of the quality of product in Nigeria.
While so much is being done by the Nigerian government to grow agricultural value chains, scale up production, and increase access to global markets for made-in-Nigerian goods, especially agro-allied products, the bureaucracy of business documentation and procedures, lack of funding and limited access to market, lingering production gaps pose technical barriers to these efforts.
There are specific cases. We had issues in the area of sesame and cowpea. We observed that some countries have reported, well, specifically Japan, it's a big market for sesame. They've reported the presence of pesticide residue, which has gone beyond the maximum residue level MROL.
We look at 5 major markets for those products across some marketing corridors. You know, we have the USA as a corridor, the USA and the Americas as a corridor. We have Europe as a corridor. We have Asia as a corridor. We have the EU as a corridor. We have the UK as a corridor. So those 20 priority products are what we are working. You know, we classify into all those market corridors.
The entire gamut of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment all lined up to project and deliver on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's renewed Hope 8-point agenda.
Economic watchers say Nigeria is a ready market for global business and can be a lucrative market for companies that can learn to navigate a complex and evolving business as the NEPC build bridges with countries to boost intra-regional trade. In Abuja, Comfort Amadu.
All right, I'd like to go back to the farmer, architect Kabiru Ibrahim, who's on Zoom. And this, oh well, we'll try and get back to him as we go on. Issues we're going to raise with the farmer. However, again, in the matter of export here, while all attention is towards increasing and maximizing what we derive from exporting, the local market is facing its own challenges too. At some point in time, the producers were more, even with the distortions, the producers suddenly found that they could make a lot more than they were making before in the local markets, and goods were now, products, especially agricultural products, were now mainly for export, creating a local scarcity. How do you work around that in terms of boosting your knowledge?
You know, we're in Africa. We're in West Africa. We have what we call free trade protocol. That says within the region,
right?
You can have free movement of goods, services, capital, and right of establishment.
Right.
So when you go, we are surrounded by francophone countries. The goods move. The fact that our currency is what they don't pay. You don't go there, sell their goods, and they give you dollar. Right. It is actually the same Nigerian naira that they are using around us. So the invisible trade, we were just speaking a moment ago, that the figures we are reporting that we are captured is far less than what obtains, because a lot of them are moving through the borders, and we are not having any way of recording them because they are free movement. It's only when you come and you don't tax them, they are free of tax, no quota. But when you add value, we require 30% minimum. Our rule of origin is 30%, which coincides with the 30% that we have legislated now. You have to show us that this product that you said is made in Nigeria, for it to trade freely without duty or tax, show me that you have had 30% minimum value addition. So it is there that we call ETLS. We call it ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme. That's only when it kicks in that you can start monitoring and then begin. That's it. So it's difficult for you to. And then secondly, I pointed out to you before. Nigeria produces 71% of world yam production. Nigeria, 50 million metric tons. Ghana only produces 4%. But Ghana exports 70% of the yam into the foreign market.
And Nigeria?
Where is Nigerian yam? I don't see them. Because we have issues. The issues are many. Because, you know, customs have what... I used to be food commissioner in London for 2 years. And this is the job that I have to do. So, in customs selectivity channel has 4 opportunities to raise red flag on a Nigerian product. 1, what product is it? Oh, it's cocoa. Oh, they have aflatoxin. They have a long history of rejections. The red flag goes. The second one is, who is the shipper? That man, he has so many infractions. It doesn't matter what the product is. Red flag goes. Then, where is it coming from? Nigeria. Oh, Nigeria, there's so many things from Nigeria. It doesn't matter what it is, the red flag goes. Check. And finally, who is the exporter? The same man, today he did sesame, the other one he did that. So, you know, these are odds stacked against us. So Ghana that is meeting the requirement might well collect things from here and then export them quite. And also, the product that they are taking from you are 300% cheaper than what it used to be because of the devaluation. So all of us go to China to make money because anything you get in China, you make money. Here, it's changed. It's everything you get from Nigeria, you make money. Because you get it from Nigeria, you make about 300% the value. That's the situation.
And Nigeria is not making...
Yeah,
half of that. Okay, so what incentives would be in place for the exporters here?
Well, first, you know, when you talk about trade, you talk about export. What we need to do fundamentally is just even create a level playing ground and remove all of those obstacles. If you remove all of those obstacles that we've talked about, infrastructure, plethora of documentation, what the exporter from Port Harcourt has said about some of those charges that are undocumented and all of that. That alone, when you remove all of that, is enough incentive without even government even putting in anything extra. So we're saying remove the bottlenecks, debottle all of those things, and then things will be better. But then to talk about putting incentive, which is good, of course, you know, it provides additional comfort and will help to stimulate people going into export. We've had some of those policies before, like the dollar for naira for dollar inflow. You are encouraged when you export and you bring back your dollar, you get some sort of incentive from the central bank. Those were things that really worked. There might have been some problems, but you know, you don't throw away the baby and the bath at the same time. So such incentive could come in place because every country has a deliberate policy and plan to promote export. So what if you look at it in Nigeria is you need the services of the exporter, but then you make him, you know, you punish him. Instead of incentivizing him, instead of, encouraging him to do more. So some of those incentives, we could go back, look at some of those incentives that were in place before, where if you export, you should be given certain incentives. Create special access to finance at good interest rates, single-digit intervention funds. You know, if you're doing export and you're faced with 32% interest rate, so before you even start, you have 32% as a major cost. Then look at all those other inefficiencies. By the time you add it up together, then you can see the uphill task, you know, to answer your question on when do you think we are going to get to a stage where oil will not play a significant role and we'll just see oil as just one of those other things. Until we're able to deal with all of these issues, then we will not get there in the near future. But hopefully, if the government looks at this, catalyze all of this together, and then, you know, it's easy to get there if the political will and then, you know, deliberate policy and plan is put in place and implemented. That can happen.
Well, back to our Port Harcourt studio. You said earlier on that stability is key. Stability in policies. With what we have on ground now, for those who are thinking of going into exporting, are they encouraged that there is stability at this point in time for them to think of long-term export investments?
Yes, Cyril, I would not say it's 100% encouraged, because I'm taking, for instance, myself as a person. If not that I have passion, and it's what I've been doing over the years, I've been tempted to go back. Today, coincidentally, we had a training for Faith Foundation on export readiness. An exporter asked a question. Government is only concerned about you bringing the dollars and then make sure you repatriate it, or else they penalize you. But peradventure, you run into a problem with an importer overseas and you are owed. Look at this policy. When we want to import from other countries, it must be LC. It's only in Nigeria that they use open account, like sell or pay you later, do this. So there should be a dedicated policy. For the past 5 years, we have been working with CBN, with Nexim Bank, to come up with a policy called factoring. The way factoring works in other countries is that I give you my cargo. Because I am doing factoring with you, an agency or a bank in that country will pay me and allow the person importing to pay back. We don't have such things in Nigeria. It has not been gazetted. It has not been made into law. So you see that so many of the exporters are losing money on daily basis. And it's that become a norm. Like this morning, I had a call from Dubai, a Chinese saying there, oh, I want to buy sesame seed, but I'll give you 10% of the total price when the cargo gets to the port, and then you give me a document, I'll pay you the balance. It's not possible, because the moment the cargo gets to the port, you cannot bring that cargo back. So it becomes a problem. So export is only making, we are making it sweet in the news, on paper. But when you come to the practical aspect of it, it is not just the way it sounds. So government need to make a deliberate effort, mainly with this single window. You know, I mentioned it before. I went to Mombasa Port. I see the way single window works. And the comfort of my room, I can do my declaration. I can declare my parking list. I can declare all the documents, my single good declaration form, and then the custom will look at it and do a release. But I'm telling you that for you to get a release of your cargo finally is a problem. So it takes two to tango. If this is actually put in place, the single window is working and is working well, the scanners are working, it will reduce our timing at the port. It will also reduce the unreceipted payment, which is so much in the port. They will hold you to ransom because they know that the owner of the articulator, the trailer that you are bringing in, has told you, I've gotten to the gate of the port and you are not able to enter. On daily basis, is charging you. So you have no other option but to give them the unreceipted payment to enter into the port. Who do you cry to? The Shippers Council should be strengthened. It is only here that the port economic regulator, that where tax complaint is taken outside the port, I start to be corrected. I'm not saying Shippers Council should go and collect dues in the port. They should be closer to the port so that if I have a problem, I can run to them. Like One is a little bit far from Port Harcourt main town. If I have a challenge and Shippers Council is there, and either with Custom or with NAFDAC or with Quarantine or with the NDLA or with any of the agencies, Shippers Council can intervene and say, okay, what's the matter? How do I come in? But they will expect you to leave that thing, come to Shippers Council office and write a letter and wait for them. Export is like coup. If you cannot do the time, you will not do the coup, because the man over there that is buying from you has his own time that is expecting this cargo to come. So the agencies that are meant to be facilitators are now constituting a roadblock to trade instead of facilitating trade. So this must be looked into critically. It must be looked into critically, otherwise we don't make a headway. Like my friend there said about labs that could test our product. I am backbone to say this, Cyril, that we have a small lab in our own, an independent lab in the institute. This morning, somebody from Poland said they lab and make sure that this pancreas shell is tested. So which means confidence is being built. So this lab issue, state government, federal government should allow independent people to come in to have your lab. Even right from production, you should be able to test your product, have your barcode, have everything that will make this product easily traceable. Peradventure has an issue internationally. So otherwise, we'll still be having issue with rejects. Otherwise, we'll still be having issue with not meeting up with time. Because if a product does not arrive on time, it becomes a problem. So these are the things I think government should look into, and then have at least the willpower, the political power to say, okay, if you are exporting, just okay, for instance, today, Pengassim, you cannot hold any of their truck. It goes seamlessly. Export should just be giving that kind of entrance to the port. As long as you are doing the right thing, nobody should hold an export container. If somebody is holding an export container and the red flag is flagged, the person should be made to pay penalty. Otherwise, it will continue this way. A lot of the export cargo are being held in between, like from Port Harcourt, between Akpajo to the gate. By the time you meet OC gate, before you get to the final place and you hand over your single good declaration form, it's already a problem. So this must be looked into if exporters must do well in the system.
We still seem to be having issues linking up with Architect Kabiru. Right, he's there now, so let's come to you. Now we have you back online, Architect Kabiru Ibrahim, the farmer. And we've talked about many of those issues. Now, earlier on, often raised the matter of agencies concerned with quality and standards as you begin to export more. I even gave an example where weevils were found in some products that were being exported. So this has led to goods being rejected. A few examples were given here. What are the main recurring issues Nigerian goods being rejected abroad? The question of standards and certification.
You see, at the Nigeria Agribusiness Group, we are really concerned about making the agricultural products export ready. So from the farmers, we expect a confirmation with the good agricultural practice. And from the regulators, we expect transparent work on certification, quality, and safety. Now, when these institutions started with this do not work the way they should, we end up having these problems. It is very shameful that a lot of our products are rejected abroad. For whatever reason, whoever is responsible for doing anything should be held accountable. From the stories that we have been getting from Port Harcourt and from my president, the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, and even Prof, it is very clear that we have to be ready to be able to export properly and earn foreign exchange, and in a formal manner. You know, if you don't formalize exportation, the country that you're exporting from does not get anything. If people go through the back door to export, the government doesn't get anything. Therefore, the government will not be incentivized to enforce some of these things that we have complained about. Now, for the exporter, since you aggregate from farmers, you must also be able to put in a lot more than is happening today. It's not an all-commerce market. You need to have your outgrowers. You need to make them to conform to good agricultural practice, to give you whatever you want to use, to be able to semi-process or process that, and then you export. So the relationship is very, very strong. It's supposed to be very strong from the producer to the exporter and to the processor. If you have people of your own that you give incentives to, they will be loyal and they will produce to the standards that you set. So export will be seamless. I gave you the example of the Netherlands deliberately. I'm sure my president knows that when we export sesame in its raw form, it is taken or obtaken, for instance, in in Netherlands. There's a place in between, around the Belgium border. They process specimen and it goes out to the United States and other places as product of the Netherlands. Whereas it is actually taken from some countries in Africa and especially Nigeria, and then value is added to it and it is exported as if it is coming from the Netherlands. So some of these countries are making money off of us because we are not taking advantage of our possibilities. Farmers should be encouraged not to sell whatever they produce in its primary form. You must do some value addition. There are certain programs that take care of some percentages of value addition. If you take leather, for instance, between 1996 and 98, the Abuja administration even banned the export of raw leather. You had to do at least blue cresting to be able to export it. You don't export it in its raw form. Recently, there was talk about shea nut being banned from exportation for, in the beginning, 6 months. Some people have been caught in because they have large quantities that they would normally export in its raw form. Today, they may be crying that they are not able to dispose of what they have, and some of them will lose money and all that. But this is something that is necessary to do to make sure that we stop exporting whatever we have in its raw form and then attract the much needed foreign exchange. Because unless we do production, we will not be able to earn foreign exchange optimally to be able to compete on a global level. Now I am happy that most people are talking about export, non-oil export and all that, and so many improvisations are there in the market. If you go to the supermarkets, like where you are in Abuja, go to H-Medics and all that, you find gari, packaged rice, beans and all that in packaged form, and I'm sure that a lot of consideration has been given to safety, to quality and all that, and we can export to some countries even within Africa. Because there is so much business in Africa that we do not have to go to where whatever we produce is rejected. Starting from here, we can make a big kill and then be able to really scale our industries to a level where they will compete globally. It is gradual. I'm not sure that the United States began the way it is today. When China, Russia, and the rest of them were behind an iron curtain, they were considered poor. But by the time they imbibed the culture of value addition, quality control, and logistics, transport, and all that, distribution, even containerizing some of these things and taking them off to other countries, now they have become first world. And even the United States is afraid of China because of what it can do. Most of the things that you see in the United States are really made offshore to the US. A lot of good suits and all that, you find they are made in Korea. There are many textile materials are made elsewhere. And because those people have sat down and deliberately invested in that thing, and Nigeria needs to do that. We need to scale up our investment in supporting people who are poised to export what is available internally. Because we have a vast array of resources, all we need to do is to scale them with quality, with safety and all that, and then they will be export ready. And that's what we must do to be able to really make the country prosperous.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let me come back here in the studio, and here we come to Professor Ken Ife. This is your turf now. The strategies that can be employed so that Nigeria can further tap into emerging markets in Africa. And this is what we're looking at under the framework of the AFCFTA.
AFCFTA, yeah.
Yes.
We see, the country wants to grow to $1 trillion economy in the next few years by 2030. There are several pathways that can get there. One pathway would be, let's ramp up the service sector because it's already giving us the bigger growth, and then take it all the way. But you need a very high percentage of growth to be able to get there. But that will not solve the problem of employment. It will not solve the problem of more people heading into poverty. It will not solve the problem of food insecurity. The second one is to say, what is the real challenge facing Nigeria's development? And we have identified it, is because this country is import dependent. The structure of international trade, or what they call the specialization of labor, wants you to be producing raw material and taking out there. And you have now made a decision, yes, we can still do raw material, but it mustn't be less than 30%. Let's implement that. For you to implement that, you need an industrialization policy. We don't have one. The trade policy we had was 2005. 2005. Yes. We did one in 2012, which was supposed to be every 5 years. We did it. I wrote the chapter on trade facilitation. Dr. Remu wrote on investment. Dr. Oguntola, Professor Oguntola, and all that. Anyway, but it was never approved by the Federal Executive Council. So, if we are going to focus on industrialization, all the macroeconomic policies must connect to industrialization. And we have a big disconnect. Trade policy should actually be beating their hand on their heart and be saying, this is it. We need an export-led economy. But it's not, because you don't even have one. Now, the investment policy should be telling us what kind of investment can we direct into industrialization. They're not talking about that. They're talking about portfolio transfer, the other stuff. They're not. Fiscal policy is even doing the worst, because fiscal policy will go and give incentive, we'll call it infant industry policy, they will give waivers and all of that, and we'll find out that the waiver is almost half of the revenue that the government is going to get. It is the same fiscal that allows frivolous imports, and then you have 2 million workers in industrial graveyard in Kano. That is the textile industry. Textile industry in Kano, Kaduna, and Lagos went, losing 2 million jobs because they allowed reckless importation of all kinds of materials from China. Okay. Then you have the same, even where you have crude and gas. The whole policy allowed the refineries to go dead, and then all the crude go out, and then you import everything and you go and look for subsidy. That is how the fiscal policy destroys the rest of the program. So you still have, they have to align. The monetary policy would have to align. You've just mentioned some incentive, 100 for 100 that they withdrew. Then intervention fund, they've withdrawn. Then the manufacturing sector is the lifeline. What are you industrializing? Is the manufacturing sector. And then as you're looking at our manufacturing sector, you have to look after the MSMEs. 42 million MSMEs in Nigeria out of 90 million in Africa, which means Nigeria's entrepreneurship is 48% of Africa, while our population is 15%, while our GDP is about 16-17%. So that tells you that comparative advantage of Nigeria is entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
And that's the people you need to use in implementing an export-led economy. You've got them. No finance is available to them.
Okay.
So policies, the policy alignment, you must have policy handshake and alignment. All the macroeconomic policies must focus on industrialization.
You just took it right out of my mouth, because I was going to ask him to say the hurdles, access to finance.
Yes. Well, that's a very big challenge. And earlier on today, we were at the State House banquet to discuss the program, the Africa Agricultural Dialogue. And it was meant to, find solutions, talk about innovative ways of bringing in finance into agriculture and also the SCPZ corridor. So finance is key. And right now, there's a deficit of over $75 billion in agricultural finance in Nigeria. And then you find that despite that, if you look at the aggregate funding directed to agriculture, it's just about 5%. And here we're talking about non-export. So I really brought this figure, to bring it to play on what we're talking about. So we must have innovative ways of bringing in finance. Development finance, it's very key. Because there's no way that you will be competitive when you are borrowing at 30, 35, 36, 37%. Is it for industrialization, or is it for exports that you can be charged such interest and then be able to excel or be able to double or triple what you are doing? It's not possible. That's not going to work. So the fundamentals must be that we have a deliberate government policy, deliberate government intervention funds. And yes, we've had intervention funds previously. And I want to just talk about the Anchor.
Yes.
The Anchor Borrower program is being vilified. But I tell you, there was a lot of success. There are problems and challenges, just like every other thing. So I think what should have been done is to refine this, look at where the challenges were, look at the successes, and then tweak the program. Because, this is something that really touched a lot of farmers, a lot of processors, a lot of value chain, because the interest rate was a single digit. So if there's been some fallout or some people who have taken and not paid, why don't you refine it and make it better? Because it's only government that can provide some sort of security or some sort of funding programs that will stimulate this economy. And I say, when you don't have such, can you afford the fallouts from some of these things, where you have people unemployed, people sitting down doing nothing? And an idle man, they say, the devil's workshop. And that has led to some of these challenges and insecurity that we see. So we would rather spend on the productive sector, even if it's subsidizing some of this sector, than in trying to face and address the challenges. And I was telling somebody earlier on, and will you rather shoot a bullet that probably cost about $2, or you rather give in that money to finance agriculture, and even if you lose half of it, which would be better? Or you rather be challenged with mobilizing security forces that cost millions of dollars? So you have to look at this thing and see what is the outcome. And there's no country today that does not provide sort of intervention funding or subsidize agriculture or even industrialization or production in one way or the other. So we need to, really focus. We have to sit down, tell ourselves the truth, and see what we can do deliberately to be able to, bring in financing that is necessary.
All right. We'll spend the rest part of the program looking at how you can take care of these issues that have been mentioned, and of course sustain them for greater export value. And so let's go to Port Harcourt again, and from your experience, beyond agriculture and solid minerals, Prof here had talked earlier about the potential of the creative industry, and there's also the e-commerce. Let's hear you on that as we begin to wind down.
Yes, Cyril, you could remember that during the Jonathan administration, what made us the huge and the biggest economy in Africa was the creative industry. And there was a little bit of an issue there, and we need to go back to the drawing board. Where do we get it wrong? And then continue, because that really gave us an edge. And that also ought to do with policy. Like Mazioko has said, our trade policy is faulty. Even the one we had in the past, it favors foreigners. So we need to go in and say, where do we get it wrong? What could we do? Like currently now, our youth are buying a lot online. That's e-commerce, and we are not selling online. So that is why in the institute we came out with what we call SEDP, Student Export Development Program, letting them understand. Some years back we were banned for the use of dollars. You cannot spend more than this. So if our students, if our populace will be taught on how to export using the e-commerce, because if you go to Jumia and the rest of the platform, you see I was spending billions on daily basis. How is this money also coming back to us? So we need to do a policy, either AUC, National Board for Technical Education, encouraging our young people not just to use the phone for other things, they can also use the phone to do export. Considering our diaspora market, we have a lot to spare. We have a lot to send to UK, to Canada, to other countries that Nigeria has a large diaspora market. So I also want to talk to the Diaspora Commission. They should look at trading within that commission. If our young people are made maybe partners with other trade support institutions, thank God for what Mazioko is doing. The other time he was in Ghana, he go to other places to settle dispute. If our people could be made, the young people in particular, make it compulsory that you must have an export certificate. When I say certificate, you've learned export, you are export ready. The people in the NYC are also export ready. Then you now empower some trade support institutions. The Nigerian Export Promotion Council is a national export promotion council. But in other countries you go, you have what they call Trade and Investment Support Institution, which is the Traders Association that the OCA is chairing, is one of them. Like MAN, like FASIMA, like NASIMA, then like the Institute of Export Operations and Management. We work together with this. The government agencies, the MDS should not look at them as competitors. That's where we got it wrong. We are all working towards the same goal. But by the time you're feeling some other person is trying to do your own work, it becomes an issue. So we can teach them e-commerce, B2B, B2C, C2B. It is very, very crucial that we can catch them young from the university, at least strengthen our entrepreneurship centers in all the universities. So by the time somebody is coming out from the university, he does not only come out with BSc, he also come out with a certificate in export. He can speak export, he can hear the language of export, he can also do export. So I believe this will be a very good thing that will be created into our educational curriculum like we have in so many other countries, that you must understand export. And then the incentive should be there. In India, if you come out from school and say you want to do export, $5,000 is already waiting for you. Whereas here it's not like that. So we should look at the industry, the tech industry, the other industry, because what you are mentioning about is services. So we need to look at how we can explore this avenue of services. We have been doing so much on product, but not so much. So this time around, we should do more, and much effort should be put, and government policy should be there to support services. So I think with that, we will earn more, because for every average Nigerian that has an Android phone, a student that is export ready, that has done export readiness, he's export ready, his product is export ready, can be earning money through that export, and then he'll be happy to be doing it while in school or outside school.
We would like to thank you very much for your contributions tonight on the issues here. Let's bid you farewell for now. Ofon Udofia, exporter, CU, Institute of Export Operations and Management from our Port Harcourt studio. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you, Cyril. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, I believe we still have the Faber with us. We've not lost those signals, have we? Oh dear. Okay, we'll try and see if we can get him to, give us his closing comments. But, well, Sheriff Balogun is right here in the studio in Abuja, and this is where we'll bring you in. Okay, all right. The farmer is up again.
Yes, Cyril, I'm here.
All right. So we're winding down, and you heard the last comments. Mentorship, training, well, people want to get themselves busy getting involved in exporting so that we would have the competitive edge. What say you?
Yes. In fact, we used to be higher than Egypt in Africa's economy. Egypt has just overtaken us. In fact, now we are fourth or fifth or wherever.
Right.
Now, the secret in Egypt is that agribusiness is very, very strong. They have e-finance. They are making their bank of agriculture the bank of everybody. They have a data center that captures every activity in agribusiness. And all of it is harnessed such that there is big revenue to government and the economy has grown. In Nigeria, what I have realized is that there is so much informal exportation that is not even gazetted, that the government does not earn any revenue from. If we do that with our young people and women, and we teach them the benefits of attracting foreign exchange, Nigeria's economy will go back to its first position in Africa. And I think this is the way to go. In agribusiness, what we do is to make whatever is produced in agriculture in Nigeria exportable, that it is of the right quality, it is quite safe, and there is value addition of whatever level before it is exported. Anything that is exported, it is raw form. You are actually doing the business for the other person that is receiving it. You take cocoa in its raw form and you bring chocolates, very exotic chocolates, and there's a lot of money that you pay.
And very
now
expensive
that,
too.
Our naira is weak, what we give out is plenty. And what we bring in is also costly. So we must think from outside the box to make Nigeria work. And it is everybody's problem. But the private sector is the engine room of growth of this economy. Yes, government will provide the enabling environment, but the private sector should also invest in those enabling environments. And this is why I think the FAO with the German corporation came out to support Nigeria in some 5 crops or so with about $3.14 billion to be able to really help us to scale so that our economy will be better and our nation will be food secure. Because in anticipation of the growth in population, that would be 400 million in about 25 years, we need to do a lot more than we are doing now.
Okay.
So I would like this to be the party shot that I will give.
All right. So thank you very much, Architect Kabir Ibrahim, commercial farmer and President, Nigerian Farmers Business Group. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, here we are with the President of the Nigerian and American Chamber of Commerce as we wind down.
Well, for me, it wouldn't be just a single parting shot because we've talked about certain issues, and I think solutions lie in 1, 2, 3, 4. First, for me, infrastructure, which we need to take care. It's there. Then policy aggregation, and then implementation.
And stability.
And stability, of course. Right. When you aggregate, when you integrate, when there's coordination, of course, and implementation, there'll be stability. Because stability will come as a result of those policies that are deliberately put there to be able to ensure that things are stable. And fiscal policy is also very important. There shouldn't be discordant tunes from various agencies. That should be there. And then most importantly, putting a right funding mechanism, whether it's going to be a PPP thing, equity, a mix of loans, intervention, so that we will have funding to industrialize and for exports at the right level of interest rates. I think that will be my parting shot. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Prof.
Yeah, it's quite agree with all that you have to say. I think the critical, if you look at export-led economy, the examples were the Asian tiger economies. Malaysia, Indonesia, China. China lifted 400 million people out of poverty. And these economies grew because of their focus on export. See, the thing is, when you create a product that is fit to export, a lot of things have gone in. You've met quality standards. You've met HACCP compliance and good manufacturing practice. You've met good agricultural practice. You've met all of that standard to build a product that can be traded on international market. And when you are doing that from your resource, you are creating a lot of jobs at home. But when you sell raw material, you've exported the jobs and imported poverty. That's the dichotomy. But all policies must converge. Because if they don't, then there will be discordant notes. All the small effort you make here will be swamped by the, they just destroy. Nigeria, we had our last medium-term development plan. The government says we're going to borrow, we need 250 trillion. All levels of government can only contribute 50 trillion. They want private sector to find 300 trillion, 85%. That tells you the primacy of engaging the private sector. But you still won't let them work. You still the obstacle that blocks them. I mean, that's the thing. We need to have that discussion. I said to the central bank, we need to have forex policy. And that forex policy should pin on export strategy to bring the money. Then you said to fiscal authorities, stop this fiscal dominance over trade and monetary and investment policy and fall in line. Then we said to trade policy, wake up, we are talking about trade. I mean, they're all at cross purposes. And then you tell investment policy, what are you doing? Give us the right kind of investment that we require on the trade-related infrastructure. You see, government borrows money because they don't have any savings. But who goes are borrowing goes are sorrowing. When they borrow, the law says borrow for capital expenditure and human resource development. In capital expenditure, talk about infrastructure. If you're talking about export-led economy, it will be trade-related infrastructure. It will be industrial infrastructure like building industrial parks in free trade zones. It will be related. And then it says you may invest in productive capacity. So government, if it wants to build a refinery or big mega project, the law allows you to do that, provided it can repay itself. And then human resource development. Our big resource is human beings, and they are young people. 70% of the population are under 39. So why are you not investing in these people? Why don't you train 10 million people? Why don't you give loan? The cheapest thing you can do is to give loan, borrow $10 billion, and give it as loan to young people. Let them go to school, get the best education in IT, whatever. Because you borrow this money at 2%. After 20 years, 15 years, 20 years, these children that have got jobs will give you a return, internal rate of return of over 20 to 25%. Is that not good business? You borrow that too, and you're having a return of 25%. Is that not a good business? And then you have health, no insecurity, you have prosperity. You have, 17 million Nigerians are abroad and they are bringing $26 billion to the economy as remitter. How much more when many more can go out and do this? And they don't even need to go out. They can stay here and make money. Okay. If you train them in digital economy.
Okay. Thank you. So I'd like to thank you very much. And this is where we must leave the conversation. It was all about consolidating non-oil exports. And as I always say, no one program can take care of all the issues. So we must leave this conversation here and thank our guests here. Professor Ken Ife, thank you for being here once again. And great seeing you again, Sharif Balogun. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, my pleasure, and thanks for having me here.
Right. And that's our program. We thank you for watching. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.